What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So with the holiday season really kicking off, Sony did finally announce their plans for Black Friday when it comes to hardware, accessories, and software. We'll be taking a look at all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Nintendo throwing their hat in the ring with their cyber sale that actually has a ton of games and even some pretty steep discounts that are actually quite ridiculous. And then we'll also be talking about Stalker 2, as it's out now, but reviews did go live yesterday, which once again shows the concerns around modern game releases and them actually working. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with an update to the story around Sony and the potential for them acquiring Kadakowa, of course, the parent company of From Software, makes Elden Ring, and now it looks like they've issued a letter actually confirming Sony looking around. We can see this posted up. This is over on The Verge, where this from Kadakowa saying there are some articles on the acquisition of Kadakowa Corporation by Sony Group. However, this information is not announced by the company. The company has received an initial letter of intent to acquire the company's shares, but no decision has been made at this time. If there are any facts that should be announced in the future, we will make an announcement in a timely and appropriate manner. Once that story did drop, though, the other day, you can see that the stock price for Kadakowa Corporation, shot through the roof. So typically that's one of the reasons that these companies, more so Sony, wants to try to keep some of the stuff under wraps leading up to its eventual acquisition. We'll say if that does happen, because you can see what happens here to a company's valuation now, like Kadakowa Corporation. But they're not outright denying it. Obviously, they're saying, yes, there is at least an intent from Sony. So we'll see how all this shakes out in the coming weeks. As was mentioned with that recent report, we're still weeks off potentially of this happening. It's not necessarily going to happen tomorrow or anything like that, so we'll stay tuned. Also, we did get an announcement from Microsoft with a long requested feature around Game Pass Ultimate and streaming titles, not necessarily games that are in that catalog, but games that you own outside of it. We can see this. This is over on news.xbox.com, where they say starting today, they're excited to announce that they'll be allowing Game Pass Ultimate members to stream select games they own through TVs and browser on supported devices like smartphones, PCs, and tablets in all 28 countries where Xbox Cloud Gaming Beta is available. This is just the beginning. Next year, we're excited to bring this feature to Xbox consoles and the Xbox app on Windows. So this has just sort of been another step in their process of eventually having an entire built-out cloud platform. And it has been a lengthy one so far. It's still in beta for game streaming, and this has been years in the making just to get to this point. So in this case, they have a list of 50 titles that are supported. And there are some newer ones in there like Dragon Quest III HD 2D that just came out. That is available. Final Fantasy XIV Online, which would make the process of jumping into the game much faster than having to download a bunch of patches and all kinds of stuff there. So take a look through the list, and if you own any of them, yeah, go ahead, fire it up and see what their cloud streaming is like there outside of just that Game Pass Ultimate library. Oh, and while we had just talked about really the disastrous launch for Flight Simulator 2024 and how people just weren't able to play the game that they had purchased due to the server load and seemingly it just not functioning when you call out to the server to provide like 95% of the game files. Well, we can see this. This is transcribed by VGC, and it is based on a video that was published, launched a update video, where the Microsoft Flight Sim head, Jörg Newman, and Asobo Studio CEO Sebastian Walk have apologized to players, saying, while it's a great launch day, we know a lot of people are frustrated. We're really sorry. We want to apologize. This video, we made it because we're always here. We want to be as transparent and as honest as possible. So we have some problems today. The team is on it, and we will keep going. Now, as far as I've seen, as of yesterday anyway, it was easier to log into the game and actually play it, but there are still some saying they can't get past like the 97% load screen that's been plaguing many of the people trying to get into this game, and it just seems like something they're working through since it came out. And unfortunately, that just means they weren't ready for launch. And I don't know if it's they weren't expecting so many people to try to log in, or they thought it would work and it just didn't. So They're still working on it. I know an apology like this doesn't necessarily go a long way for someone who spent $200 and was looking to jump into the game, when it came out. But here's hoping they can have this thing sorted out, especially as we approach the weekend when I'm sure many people are looking to spend a bunch of time in it. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony and their Black Friday plans, which they did announce yesterday on PlayStation blog, which you can see that blog post here. And this sale for Black Friday will be going from November 22nd, so starting tomorrow on Friday, to December 2nd. So you have a nice window of about 10 or 11 days there. And in this case, they do have a lot of stuff that's going on sale. The hardware and the accessories we know more so of than the software itself, which we'll get to here soon. But starting from the top, as expected, PlayStation 5 consoles are going to be on sale, and it's most likely that $70 off. They didn't get into specifics necessarily for the amount of money that'll be taken off the sticker price. But remember, they did post that ad a little too early in one of their recent ad spots, their videos, and it looked like, yes, it was just $70 off. I'm expecting that across the board, as well as with their Fortnite bundle that they did point out here. So if you're looking to get a PS5, hold off a bit longer so you can save some money and actually use that towards other things like accessories. For example, PlayStation 5 DualSense controllers will see a nice discount, about 25% from what they were describing here. Their Pulse Elite wireless headsets, their Pulse Explorer wireless earbuds, which I have been curious about one of their Pulse Elite, either headset or earbuds. Let me know if you have either. I'm just interested in maybe picking up a Sony branded one for the PlayStation 5 specifically, maybe this holiday season. And then PlayStation 5 console covers also on sale. I need to see a PlayStation 5 Pro console cover here, Sony. I mean, come on, let's get that going, since they decided to make the whole thing a bit more difficult, since it's not, unfortunately, compatible with the slim console covers that are already out there. Nonetheless, if you want to also dress up maybe your new PS5, you can do that a bit cheaper here with the console covers that are available for the slim. PSVR 2 is also seeing a discount. They say of up to 40% off, which is quite substantial. I mean, the thing's already expensive as it is, and then even if you take 40% off, it's still expensive. But it's a bit more of a reasonable ask if you've been kind of on the fence with the idea of PlayStation VR 2. And since they have been adding games into the PlayStation Plus premium library, I mean, there are legitimately games that you can basically start playing right out of the gate, which is or was an issue back when the PSVR 2 came out. It's not like the library was overwhelming. It has gotten a lot better to where I can recommend, I guess, more than just like the typical Gran Turismo or actually, Tetris Effect is a good one too, or the kayaking game where you're just kind of paddling around. Otherwise, though, if you are a member for PlayStation Plus, you can renew your subscription, save 25%. Or if you're maybe going to be a new member, you actually get 30% off your price. Now that, of course, then brings us to the software that many people are interested in. We will actually get that entire list on Friday when all this goes live. We'll double back here on Monday, going down the entirety of the discounts and some of the cheaper games that we can find in what's probably going to be hundreds and hundreds of games that are listed and at times buried in the selection on PlayStation Network. However, they did have some highlights in the slide, which did include Spider-Man 2, Madden 25, Star Wars Outlaws, Hogwarts Legacy. So there are at least some good headlining titles there, but sometimes it is fun to find the $2, $3, $4 game, something to add to the backlog, or maybe just fill out a digital library as you're heading towards the holidays when you figure, or you even know, that you're going to get, say, a PlayStation 5, for Christmas. So I think a pretty good lineup here for Sony's Black Friday plans. Just a lot of stuff being marked down for hardware, of course, and the software. So we'll keep an eye on to see what their lineup is here as we get towards Friday and which games are heavily marked down. Again, we'll come back on Monday to take a look. Next up, let's talk about Stalker 2, which did release yesterday, and a few hours before its official release, reviews went live, and it was kind of all over the place. It was certainly based on the technical experience that these different outlets had, because the game itself, by all accounts from what I've seen, people are actually pretty high on the title. But we can see this is over on Metacritic, currently sitting on the PC at a 74. I did notice the Xbox version for reviews a bit higher at 81, although there are also 17 of those reviews versus 52 on PC. I like to go with the one that just has the at times overwhelming amount of reviews compared to the other, which in this case it is PC. Looking at the split, we have 22 positive, 15 mixed, too negative. And as I was scrolling through here, it's all over the place. You have Hardcore Gamer giving it 100. You have the Games Machine giving it a 90. Game Rant giving it a 90. But then you go all the way to the other end of the spectrum. You have VGC giving it a 40. Digital Trends giving it a 40. And like VGC says, it could be a great game in a few years, but it's presented at launch is a technical mess that doesn't capitalize on its best ideas. Compelling side stories and a brilliant setting do a lot of the heavy lifting, but at launch, Stalker 2 isn't an adventure we'd fully recommend embarking on. So I did go ahead and download this on the Xbox Series X, and now I'm also thinking about downloading it on PC just to see how much it varies, because this is a situation where we have these consoles right now that do struggle with things like Unreal Engine 5. Like, it's an engine that certainly beats these systems up. And when I'm playing Stalker 2, they have like performance or quality. That performance mode seems like it's going through it. It's having a hard time. And you can kind of tell it's in that weird frame rate, like range in the 40s. And when you're looking around, it kind of having this weird stuttering issue. I haven't run into any game-breaking bugs at this time. I've played about 2 hours now, though. So it's very possible that a few more hours in, all of a sudden I start having some serious problems falling through the world. Some people are mentioning that an NPC gets stuck in the door and you cannot progress beyond that. It's stuck. Like, so you'd have to restart the entirety of the game. As I've been going through, though, I am kind of save scumming because it is a difficult game. It's billed as a survival first-person shooter adventure, and it is indeed that. So, for example, you do have to worry about your hunger, so you'll be drinking and eating food. You have to worry about bleeding, so you got to bandage yourself up or heal yourself. And the shooting isn't as arcadey, I'd say, as something like a Call of Duty, for example. So there's a lot of interesting elements here with the world and exploration. And as they mentioned here, some of the side stories or side quests that'll pop up on your map. A lot of that stuff is very intriguing. But if the technical issues are mounting like this, well, maybe that's something they will fix as we go along, and it'll be a game to come back to like a year from now, because it does appear, based on a lot of the reviews and what people are saying, that the core game itself is actually really, really interesting, but it's just muddied up by all the technical issues. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo's cyber sale that is currently going on right now and will end December 2nd. What I've done is I've left a link down below in the sources to the Nintendo site, but also to Deku Deals, which does make navigating around a bit easier, and I think it presents it in a much better way because it'll also compare prices between different retail outlets as well as the eShop. But I have a feeling many of you, like almost 8 years into the Switch's life, is already familiar with this website. Nonetheless, though, I started going through this cyber sale, and I'm actually kind of floored with the amount of stuff that's marked down. And in some cases, some of the discounts, like we're talking some of these games being 70 to 80% off, and they're like good games. So let's actually start from the top here, and we'll just kind of scroll through as I go over the 25 games that I picked here, starting with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Of course, I have to put it here. It's basically the most recent big budget AAA game from Nintendo. So much so they put it at $70, but here they've marked it down to $50. We also have Super Mario Maker 2 at $40, Hogwarts Legacy Deluxe Edition at $21, Persona 5 Royal $15, followed up by Persona 5 Strikers, $18. Just over $30 you can get Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 Strikers. That's actually pretty good. Rayman Legends Definitive Edition at $8. GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition. Remember, this is now fixed. There's a patch that's been pushed, and it's completely reworked the game seemingly with the visuals and controls and stuff. $30. So it's just half off, $10 per classic Grand Theft Auto game. Now I think it's worth picking up. The Messenger, awesome 2D side scroller that does some very interesting things here in that space, $4. Trials of Mana at $20. Portal Companion Collection, $5. Unicorn Overlord, a game that people constantly recommend in the comments whenever I bring up different sales, even if it's 10% off. In this case, it's $36. Yoshi's Crafted World at $40. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 or 2, either one of them, $42 each. Bayonetta 3 at $42. Fire Emblem 3 Houses at $42. I know it's like, okay, here's Bravely Default 2 at $42. The Nintendo published games tend to still keep their value up, but seeing so many of them just on sale in general is not very common. I will say that. One Piece Odyssey at $30. It Takes Two, $16. Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble at $25. Alan Wake Remastered, $8. Disco Elysium Final Cut, $12. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the video game, that's $5. Sonic Superstars, $18. Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 HD remaster at $25, and of course had to throw Chrono Cross in there, $8. But I'm telling you guys, there's still hundreds of games that are on sale and marked down quite a bit. So if you get a chance to go through this list, leave some comments down below for just different suggestions people can check out, because once again, if you have a feeling that you're going to get a Switch this holiday, whether you're going to buy it for yourself or someone else is getting it, you can actually start loading up some of your digital library on Nintendo's website, just adding it to your account, and then when you sign into your Switch, you'll be able to download some of these games. So yeah, leave some suggestions down below. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a bit of an interesting announcement from Square Enix with Final Fantasy XIV actually going to mobile phones. Now, we had already heard that this was happening because it was in collaboration with Tencent, but now we have the official announcement, we have a trailer, and a couple of interesting tidbits that really stuck out to me in this mobile landscape. So first, let's take a look. This is over on Gematsu, as they just pushed the entirety of the press release on their website. But they say Tencent Games subsidiary Lightspeed Studios, in cooperation with Square Enix, has announced Final Fantasy XIV Mobile for iOS and Android. It will be supervised by Final Fantasy XIV producer and director Naoki Yoshida. Multiple playtests are coming soon to China, followed by a global launch soon after. And what I've gathered from this, because they put out an entire trailer, you can see some of it here, what I've gathered is this is sort of its own game. It's not going to be crossing over, at least at this time, with PlayStation or on PC or Xbox. This just seems to be like the mobile version. So think of Final Fantasy 15, how they did the Pocket Edition. It's kind of what this is, but it is still online. They didn't necessarily show the battling that at least from what I took from that trailer. And it does seem to have a bit more of a simplistic art style and look, although I will at least give phones just in general credit. Games look way better on phones than they did, 10 years ago or something. So it is impressive to see a fully fledged Final Fantasy MMO just available on phones like this. The part that stuck out to me, though, in the phone landscape, whenever I see this stuff and it's free to play, I go, okay, yeah, it's me a gacha game somehow, right? Some way they're going to get gacha elements into this. Not the case for Final Fantasy XIV Mobile. Apparently, it's free to play with no gacha elements. So I assume monetization will be tackled maybe similar of like cosmetics or anything else they do in Final Fantasy XIV beyond the typical subscription fee. They'll just kind of work that in here. So interesting path here when it comes to just mobile games, and maybe it's something that can set a bit of a standard or just a new trend in that space, because that is something that's becomes pretty annoying, I'm sure, for many people, are gacha elements just being completely woven into the gameplay itself. Here, we're just going to see Final Fantasy XIV, a mobile version of it, but just be Final Fantasy XIV. And while I know mobile games aren't necessarily the most exciting to especially the crowd here, we're most talking about console and PC stuff, it is still interesting just to see how Final Fantasy XIV Mobile turns out, especially because technically it's a clean slate. So if you missed Final Fantasy XIV when that first started up, you jump in here and you'll kind of be starting fresh with a bunch of other people just on your mobile phone. Either way, they are launching at least a playtest initially in China first, and they'll move for it to be a more of a global release. So I guess keep an eye out for release dates as they move towards, I assume, 2025. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you currently own a PlayStation Portal? 90% say no, 10% say yes. And the PlayStation Portal actually has got a pretty substantial update. I was going to take a look at it when my voice gets a bit better. I wanted to just kind of show off some of the cloud functionality that it now has, the streaming stuff, because Sony's basically said, hey, you don't need a PlayStation 5 to play games on this handheld device, which is, to me, another step towards them having other alternatives to just having to buy their console. And maybe we do work to that dedicated handheld that doesn't even need a cloud, like a connection to play off of the cloud. But I actually have enjoyed my PlayStation Portal more and more recently, especially because like on Sundays I'll watch football. I end up just playing the Portal for hours on end where the TV's taken up by football. For things like recently was Dragon Quest III HD. Plays awesome on there and it looks really good. Network connection, of course, or reliance. So if your network isn't great, it's going to be a bit iffy. Mine doesn't really leave my house. So it's pretty much on good wireless. And then I also have my PS5 hardwired. So all of that kind of working towards that ideal configuration. But for me, at least, it's worked well. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Medallion. It says, it's that time of year when Spawn gets sick and starts losing his voice. I hate when that happens to me as well. Quick recovery, dude. So definitely shout out to all the people I saw in the comments who were like, hey, get well soon. Some people are giving me suggestions as to how to get better faster. It's funny. This happens almost every year, it seems now, because in the Northeast, we'll have wild swings of temperature around this time. So one day you might walk outside, it's 30 degrees for some reason, and then the next it's like 70. So that can all happen in the span of 24 hours. It's wild here in November. But as we get into December, the Mother Nature will pretty much just make up its mind. And it's like, okay, now it's just always 30 degrees. And like your body will adjust to it. But like the wild swings, allergies, and other things kind of getting into play, it does make it difficult, at least for me, when it comes to my voice. And I think last year I went to the doctor and they're like, yeah, just don't talk for like 2 days. Like, oh, well, I don't know if I can do that. So here we are. But yeah, I'm working through it. It's a bit better today than it was yesterday. Kind of expecting tomorrow to be a bit better than today. So hopefully get to the point where I can show off the portal and we can do some other stuff, of course, in different videos I have planned. But getting better. So just a few more days, I think we'll be back to normal with the typical setup. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to check out some of the Wii channels that are actually back in 2024. That's right. You can go online with your Wii and figure out what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.